Right. For more on that and for more on a wild, wild week in the Boston Red Sox team, organization, and, of course, on the beat as well, we're joined from MassLive by Christopher Smith, who is, I believe, out in San Francisco. Right, Chris? I thought I saw you tweeting from out there.
Yeah, I was in Seattle, so I actually flew home last night. I was supposed to stay a couple extra days to do some stuff in Seattle, but that got canceled, so I flew home. So it's actually Cotillo that's in San Francisco, although Sean McAdam is headed there too.
Okay.
But I was in Seattle for all the fun this week.
Oh, very good. It's hard to keep track of all you MassLive guys and where you're going and where you're at. But I was reading all that, and you had a lot of very, very good info. So let's go ahead and start back on Sunday when we all got the notification. This was not something that I think many people were really even considering was a possibility. After a month had gone by, I kind of thought, and I think a lot of people thought, Chris, that this whole thing had blown over. And the reason why you think that is because the team's winning games, and it looks like whatever was holding things up was behind them, and now they're ready to go forward. And then all of a sudden, here comes this big news. Is it safe to say that this wasn't ever going to blow over, and it was really just a matter of time and a matter of when they were able to find the right trade partner?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I think things, soured a lot more in the last few weeks. And so, there was players that weren't happy with Rafi. There were some that were on his side. There were some that weren't. But ultimately, the front office, from Craig Breslow to Sam Kennedy, everyone there, I think that they were kind of fed up with the situation. They weren't exactly happy with him not being a team player. That was the most important thing in this all. I mean, you can have bad communication, and that's one thing, and that's the fault of Craig Breslow or whatever. But you're being a bad teammate if you don't do certain things for your teammates. I mean, you got to look past certain things. That's one person in the organization, Craig Breslow. When you're not, you're not even considering playing first base for your teammates. When a guy ruptures his patella tendon and there's no one to play that position, I mean, that's not being a good teammate. I also felt like in New York, that final game in New York, on that Sunday night game, Rafael Devers did not hustle out a play that he should have beaten in first. And, I tweeted it out then. I thought he should have been benched for that game, for the rest of that game. And, I think that the organization covered for him a little bit. Cora at that point said it wasn't a lack of hustle. But a week later, I'm not saying that was the cherry on the top,
right.
But I mean, there was a lot of stuff that you can look to, and just a bad attitude. And, he has some reason to be upset, but there's also, he deserves a lot of blame in this.
I agree with you that he does. You've covered him his whole career, right? I mean, you've been on the beat basically the whole time he's been here.
Yeah.
Yep. When did he sort of go from being this happy-go-lucky, happy kid to what we're sort of seeing now, this malcontent who doesn't want to move and doesn't want to budge and is very openly insubordinate, really? I mean, lighting up his GM like that, going into a meeting with the owner and basically telling him to go screw. Like, it didn't seem like early on in his career that Rafael Devers was this kind of guy.
Yeah. I think that things turned more last year. At the beginning of the year, it was interesting. I did a one-on-one interview with him in Oakland, and that was the first road trip of the year. They were in Seattle, Oakland, and Anaheim. And, I asked him about his previous year, and he had talked about how it was disappointing and whatever. And so I kind of went into that with him, disappointing. Some people were critical of your year, but you did put up good numbers at the end and stuff like that. And he was kind of upset at that, interview. And I was like, this is weird. And I talked to the Spanish translator about it. And, and then one other guy on the beat was like, yeah, I got the same thing from him on this road trip. And then for the rest of that year, it wasn't like the happy-go-lucky, you can go up to him and interview him at any time. And, there were less interviews, one-on-one interviews being done. There was less interaction with the media, not wanting to speak with the media after games, after losses especially. But, he just didn't want to take, the accountability that a leader should take. And, maybe that's not his personality or whatever, fine. But it got to the point where last September, in New York, I don't know if you remember this, but we have a lot to do after the game. I'm not saying that we, I'm not trying to, make it like the media, but, we told the Spanish translator went over to him after the game and said, they're waiting for you. And then he sat in front of his locker for like an hour and then took a shower and then he just walked out, and you had like two media relations people chasing after him. I mean, the only thing, I don't care if a player doesn't want to talk to the media, but if they know that the media wants to talk to them, just tell them an hour and a half before so we don't have to waste our time standing in there. I thought that was extremely unprofessional. And, and that's why I brought it up at that time. There was many times during the year he didn't talk to us, but because of that, that's why I brought it up at that time. I usually don't like to go after players for not speaking to the media because, people really don't care how they treat us. But that I felt was important because he was just kind of it was just tone deaf on his part and stuff like that. So I think the problems really began last year. And then they just this year from the first day, he was just, really upset about being the DH or whenever they signed Bregman. He didn't go to Bregman's press conference. He actually walked right by Bregman's press conference when other teammates were there. And so, yeah, it was just not a good situation this year. And it's unbelievable that in year 2 of a 10-year deal, he's gone.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and listen, I mean, this is just based off of kind of the timeline here. It sounds like this all started right around the time that Craig Breslow got here. And the only reason I bring it up like that is because Devers really made a point of laying into Breslow through his translator into a microphone in the clubhouse with people walking by saying, hey, Raffy, stop, stop talking. And it doesn't seem like that's something that just popped up this year. I kind of agree with you. It seems like it was more deep-seated, and I wonder if maybe this attitude change coincided with someone like Breslow coming to town and doing the big audit of the team and, deciding, hey, we're paying a lot of money for this guy who's not very good at third base or just something, they say they didn't communicate with him very well, but it seems like Devers was kind of reading the tea leaves there.
He clearly was not a fan of Craig Breslow. I mean, to call out your, chief baseball officer in the way that he did, do your job, that type of, get a first baseman and there's if I'm asked to do something at work, I do it. If you're asked to do something at work, you do it. But, he makes $13 million and, that has brought a sense of entitlement in a way that, and I'm surprised that he wasn't more open to the relationship wasn't great with Craig because Craig did play, right? Right. You respect people that have played the game. And Craig Breslow was a heck of a reliever on that 2013 World Series championship team. And so, I've seen Craig get along with players, talk with players during spring training. He was in the clubhouse this week in Seattle talking with players, smiling. There are players that get along with him. There's players that like him. I don't know what the deal was with Rafi. I think it was just stemmed in bad communication. But, ultimately, you look at that and it's like, well, are you really going to tell Rafael Devers that he's not going to play third base if you haven't signed Bregman yet? There's things that you just can't say. I mean, if you're trying to trade a player, you don't tell them, right? Because that leads to, so there's obviously some things that you have to not say to players. And so, you can talk about bad communication all you want, but there are some things you just don't say until it happens. If you never sign Bregman, then he has to play third. So why bring it up before the fact?
We're talking with Christopher Smith from MassLive, joining us here in the Christian Arcand Show. Chris, the news of the day, Christian Campbell being sent back down to Worcester. I think it was a couple weeks too late. Personally, he struggled mightily since that first month. What does this mean for an organization that was so gung-ho about getting him out there, having him be the opening day starter, and a team that's been so careful with their other two prospects and their other two rookies, but they threw him right out there and now suddenly have to reassess where they are with this player?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I felt like in spring training, if you've only played, I think it's 176 games in the minor leagues, he played a year and a half. Like, he was drafted in 2023. He played that August and September, and then he played one full year in the minors. And then he gets to Major League spring training camp, and he did not play well. And there was people there that know baseball that were said to me, like, he's not good defensively. And you know, and he didn't hit at all during spring training. So it was basically them knowing ahead of time, like as spring training began, that, you know, Christian Campbell is the second baseman. You know, it's going to be hard for him to lose his job in spring training, no matter what he does. That's what they had in their heads. That's what they wanted. And I felt it was a bad way to go about things, because when you have you have a rookie that hasn't played that much, you think that you have to prove it, right? Or earn it. And he didn't exactly earn it. And he's a nice kid. I mean, he's a great kid, and he's positive, and he wants to play better and all that. So I'm not trying to like rag on him here, but I said at the time, like, he's not ready. And I'm not trying to prove that I was right or whatever right now. I think a lot of people looked at it that way at that time. I got a lot of those ideas that he wasn't ready from talking to people that, you know, that played the game and saw him during spring training. And so I didn't know why they pushed it so much. Now, he had the big April, but the numbers started to tail off around April 20th, April 22nd. And so, you know, he just didn't adjust when pitchers adjusted to him. And it should have happened like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think. There's some very smart people, some very smart writers that have been telling me for a month he should be good down. And so, you know, I just think that they rushed the kid, and it's a problem throughout baseball is rushing players. And it's they always say in like they'll be like, you know, I mean, they'll say, like Cora would admit, like, you know, the most difficult, like, it's the gap between AAA and the majors right now is larger than ever in talent.
Yeah.
And so why rush a kid right now? Why he had played like 9 AAA games last year or something like that, or I don't know, 9 to 20, 10 to 20. And so it's like, why rush him if the gap is bigger than ever? And I think they just wanted that to work, and it didn't. And now he's got to go down, and they've got to, you know, he's got to read this, and hopefully this, like, you know, this will help. Hopefully it's helped for a lot of players to go back down and to, you know, figure things out. He needs to do that.
Yeah, and hopefully he does figure it out. Real quick, Chris, before we let you go here, tomorrow night, Rafael Devers, we're seeing him less than a week after the trade. How do you anticipate this weekend goes for the team, wins and losses wise, and also the emotion or lack thereof of having to face their old teammate?
I think it's going to be a crazy weekend. I said, like, I asked Alex Cora, like, on Wednesday if he had watched the Rafi interview and what he thought about him saying that he'd be open to playing any position, first base, whatever. Just let me do anything. It's the men in the front office. They're the guys that decide it, and yada, yada, yada. And how much of a different tone that was from the Red Sox. And basically he said the reply was, like, putting that in the past, you know, that's, you know, turning the page. That was his, turning the page. And then on Thursday, or, well, no, today's Thursday. So I asked that Tuesday when he had the press conference. And on Wednesday, I said, you know, you said yesterday you're turning the page, but you're about, you know, that you're going to go to San Francisco right now. Are you prepared for that? Are you, like, you know, is that going to be a tough weekend for you? And I think that, like, you know, Cora's a good person to handle this. He's going to get a ton of questions there. There's going to be national reporters that have hung over from the, you know,
Sure.
Yeah, and there's going to be a bunch of Red Sox reporters who weren't in Seattle that are going to have at least 3 or 4 that weren't in Seattle that are going to be asking questions. And there's also going to be, you know, Giants reporters, I assume, that are going to be asking him questions about, like, you know, what went wrong, like what his personality and stuff like that. So he's not going to get away with it. He's not going to get it's not going to go away this weekend. It's going to be extremely amplified. He's going to get a ton of questions. But if anybody can handle it, it's Alex Cora. I mean, this is a guy that answered a million questions about, the Houston Astros cheating scandal and did it, well,
yeah.
extremely well to the point where he actually now says things about that, I learned when no one even brings it up. He'll bring back I learned my lesson in this and stuff like that. So he has a way of a knack of doing this, but I don't think he's going to say much this weekend. I have a feeling because Rafi didn't say much about the situation, and he indicated that when he answered my question, he said I'll answer what I want, like he did, like Rafael did. Now Rafael didn't answer much, so he might take that same approach because if that guy's not going to do it, why should he?
Yeah, good point. That is the voice of Chris Smith, MassLive. Great coverage all week of this monumental, earth-shattering trade here in Red Sox Nation. You guys are doing a great job covering it on the beat, and I thank you for the time tonight.
All right, thanks for having me.
Very good. That is Chris Smith joining us here on the Christian Arcand Show. Great stuff, as always, from him.